Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and I am a coach and sound healer in mid-Michigan. And because I've spent so many years of my career feeling stuck and uncertain about where I want to go with things, I decided that I've become an expert in all things stuck, which is why I wrote the book of Stuck and am now helping people with their own stuck issues and start heading in the direction that they were made for. So I decided to create these videos as a way to share what I've learned about being stuck so that we can grow in uncertainty together. So thank you so much for being with me today. I wanted to talk about emotional bypassing today. It's something that has come up in some of my sessions with clients, and it's also an experience that I've had in my life. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about that with you all today. So according to science, there are 27 different emotions, basic emotions that we experience as human beings. And I sort of wanted to share all of those with you, so bear with me. They include, in alphabetical order, admiration, adoration, aesthetic appreciation, amusement, anxiety, awe, awkwardness, boredom, calmness, confusion, craving, disgust, empathetic pain, entrancement, envy, excitement, fear, horror, interest, joy, nostalgia, romance, sadness, satisfaction, sexual desire, sympathy, and triumph. So I don't know if you caught this, but there are certain emotions that I think we would all expect to see on that list, like fear or happiness, right? But, or even self-doubt or nervousness. But like I said, those are apparently the 27 basic emotions that people can experience in their lives. And regardless, emotions are tools that we can actually use in our lives to help understand what we want, who we are, whether we're on track with living our life according to our values, and just basically how we want to create our life. So like I said, this recently came up for me about bypassing emotions because I asked a client at one point, what feelings come up for you when fill in the blank? And my client said, I actually don't know what I'm feeling anymore. And it really took my client aback that they wouldn't be able to identify or even differentiate any of their feelings or their emotions. But it actually made a lot of sense to me because I've experienced that myself. So I wanted to talk about how it is that we can get to a point in our lives where we're not able to differentiate emotions anymore. So one of the ways we get there is because we suppress our emotions all day long. Maybe not all of us, but a lot of us suppress a lot of our emotions all day long. I noticed this the other day when I was at work and I was feeling particularly stressed out. And I didn't feel like I had enough time to really deal with it. I just kind of had to get on with my day and be at work. And a colleague asked, hey, how are you? And I had the thought for a moment, I could share that I'm really stressed out right now, but I'm not sure she really wants to hear that from me right now. And I'm also not sure I have the time for that. So what did I say in response? Something that many of us end up saying, which is fine. And if you've ever heard that acronym for FINE, FINE is actually an acronym, and it stands for well, the PG version anyway, is freaked out, freaked out, now I'm totally forgetting it. Awesome. Insecure, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So fine, whenever you say fine, ask yourself, am I really fine, or am I using that as an acronym? So anyway, we do this for a lot of different reasons. You know, we're programmed at a really young age to suppress our emotions just to kind of get through the day. It happens at various points in our lives. Society, media, our friends, parents, teachers. You know, there are just certain emotions that we learn aren't okay to express. You know, maybe at the time or at that place. And so we develop these tools to push those emotions down. And so we grow up with that programming. Oh, you know, it's not okay for me to feel angry. It's not okay for me to feel sad in this situation. It's not okay for me to show whatever emotion is coming up for me. So that is one of the reasons why we get to a place in our lives when we can't differentiate what we're feeling. Another thing that contributes to not being able to identify your emotions anymore is that, you know, we don't do it very often because it's not really fun to sit with the painful emotions. If you're feeling really angry about something, why would you want to sit around and feel that? So, of course, it makes sense that we don't really prioritize the time to really sit with, you know, anything that's coming up for us that's painful. But the problem is that emotions are energy in motion. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when we don't allow that energy to be transformed and processed through our bodies, it gets stuck someplace. And for some people, it might get stuck and manifest into depression. It might manifest into anxiety. It might manifest into a medical condition that then you have to go to the doctor and get medications for. But really, there might be some basis for that medical condition that lies in not allowing yourself to feel your feelings. So it's really important, as we'll discuss later on, that we transform that emotion, that we allow that energy to pass through so that it doesn't get stuck. Another reason we suppress our emotions is because we're afraid that if we start feeling certain emotions, that we'll get stuck there, or we won't ever stop feeling that way. We'll just kind of be there forever. But that's actually not true. What ends up happening is that if we sit with our emotions, this is also this is a scientific study that was done. When people sit with their emotions and really consciously allow that emotion to be there for 90 seconds, or within 90 seconds, that emotion will start to dissipate. You won't be feeling that intense. So when people say, oh, no, I can't have that emotion because if I start having it, I'll never stop feeling that way. That's actually not true. So that's also something to keep in mind. You know, you can try it when you have a certain emotion come up for you. Instead of pushing it away, if you're not in the middle of your work day or in the middle of, you know, something else, give yourself some quiet time and quiet space. Bring that emotion up, sit with it, put a timer on, and see how long it takes for that emotion to start to soften, to start to shift and change. So that's something else to consider. Another reason we suppress our emotions is because we're afraid of what other people are going to think of us, you know? This is something that definitely came up for me as a musician. Um, you know, one of the emotions that wasn't really okay to feel as a musician was performance anxiety or self-doubt. The messaging that I got was, if you have self-doubt, if you have anxiety, then nobody's going to respect you as a musician. Who's going to hire you? Now, nobody actually said those words to me, but I did get that programmed into me someplace. So, and I remember in college, even though there were programs for people experiencing music performance anxiety, it still felt like there was this underlying, yeah, it's okay for other people to experience music performance anxiety, but I've never experienced it. I would hear that from a lot of my colleagues a lot of time. And, it just always seemed a little strange to me that we couldn't be more open about that, even though I knew most of us were experiencing some level of performance anxiety. So anyway, certain emotions, are triggers for, how are other people going to think of me? How am I going to be viewed out in the world if I'm having this emotion? I don't want to appear that way to other people. So we suppress the emotions so that we can maintain a certain representation of ourselves or be the person we think other people want us to be. Sometimes we're afraid of how that emotion is going to come out. What if I'm too angry and that makes someone else mad? The way that my anger comes out of me and then they don't want to be around me anymore. Then other fears start to get triggered by, this idea of sharing our emotions with other people. It can get really sticky and messy. So, of course, understandably, you would want to push that emotion down. And then finally, this is my favorite one, rationalizing or bypassing our emotions. I am quite talented at this activity myself. I did this a lot when I was experiencing career burnout. Years ago, I was very much in the throes of career burnout, and I would do things like, an emotion would come up of like just total utter exhaustion, and I would just be so energetically depleted that I just wouldn't want to go to work. But instead, I would say, it's okay that I'm tired and I don't really want to do this right now, because it just means that I'm doing what I love, and I'm needed by so many people right now. Or, I would say things like, I shouldn't feel so frustrated. I just need to find another way of doing things. Or I'd say, yeah, this other person didn't follow through with what they said that they were going to, but I'm sure they have a lot on their plate and they're going through a lot right now. It's fine. It's fine. And there's our acronym again. So anyway, rationalizing or bypassing our emotions is another way that we just basically suppress our emotions. We try to make them go away just to get through our day. So the thing with suppressing or bypassing emotions is that you can't really pick and choose which emotions you're going to suppress all the time. Once your mind and body get into the habit of suppressing emotions, pretty soon you're going to be suppressing all of them. That's what caused my depression every single time I've experienced depression in my life, but especially during career burnout. I got to the point where I couldn't even feel joy anymore. I couldn't feel happy. I couldn't feel like any kind of sense of satisfaction of a job well done, even though I deserved to feel that way at the end of a recital or a concert. I couldn't feel any of it anymore because I'd spent so much time suppressing. So, my questions for you out there include, how are you identifying your emotions these days? Do you participate in suppressing or bypassing them? Are you afraid to feel what you think you might feel? Are you afraid it won't stop if you start feeling it? Do you worry about what others are going to think of you if you talk about those feelings, or if you let it show in some way, or if you take action to start dealing with it? Are you afraid other people are going to get down on you for going to therapy, or going to a massage therapist, or whatever it is? Are you afraid of how your emotions are going to seem to other people, the intensity of them? Do you think it's going to be too much? Or have you gotten to the point where you're just not sure what you're feeling anymore? Emotional differentiation is a muscle, and muscles can atrophy over time if they're not used. But fortunately, it's my belief that you can bring your emotional muscle back. You absolutely can, because I've done it. I've done it lots and lots of times myself. So it takes time, though. And I do have some tips for how to bring your emotional muscles back on board. One of them is to find an app that helps you identify your emotions. I know they make an app for everything, but there are two that I highly recommend, and they're two that are just the tip of the iceberg for what's out there right now of identifying emotions and thoughts. And the first one I really recommend is called Thought Diary. And what's great about this one is that you can, if you're in the middle of an experience that's uncomfortable and you don't know what to do about it, you can go to Thought Diary and you can type your story of what's going on in your life, and you can use all your words. Nobody's going to read it, I promise. Just you, unless you really wanted to share it with people, but you don't have to. Anyway, Thought Diary. You type in your story. You identify the thoughts. You identify the feelings. And then you're given opportunities to challenge your thoughts, which is another important tool that I'll talk about a little bit later on. By the end of it, you can either at least feel acknowledged and validated for what you're feeling, which is super important, by the way, or you can end up having a completely different perspective on your story. And having a different perspective on your story helps you it helps you transform that emotion. It helps you stop suppressing it or bypassing it and actually use it to take action in your life. And it tells you the direction you want to be going. So that's a great app. Another one that I really love is called The Work, and this one was created by and I guess you'd call her an emotional awareness thought leader. Her name is Byron Katie, and she is someone who's worked a lot with depression in her own life. And this app is very similar to the Thought Diary, and she has very specific questions that she asks. So that's another one to check out. So another way that you can develop your emotional muscle is to notice how your body feels throughout the day. Emotions aren't thoughts. Our emotions are actually physical sensations. Have you ever noticed that? When you're feeling really happy, you have that, kind of uplifted feeling, maybe in your heart. If you're nervous, think about the language we use for nervousness. I have butterflies in my stomach. If that doesn't conjure up a physical feeling, I don't know what does. So emotions are a physical sensation. So when you can connect in with your body and really get a sense of what you're physically feeling when something challenging comes up for you, that's when you can start to say, okay, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling a tightness in my chest. Usually when I feel a tightness in my chest, that means I'm really angry about something. What am I really angry about? And then you can go through and ask yourself some questions and figure out, what are my thoughts right now? Well, no wonder I'm angry right now. What do I want to do about that? Maybe I want to sit with it for 90 seconds, see if it goes away. Maybe I want to challenge it. Maybe I want to get my app out and try a thought diary. So that's another way that you can start to identify your emotions. Emotions have a tendency to pop up in different places in the body. Another thing you can try is to allow yourself some daily reflection time. It doesn't have to be a ton of time, 5 to 10 minutes, where you just kind of sit down and take stock of what's going on, what kind of thought loops do you have going on, what are you feeling in your body related to emotions, and just take stock of everything every single day. That can help you build up that emotional muscle as well. So developing that awareness is so important. So then emotions are such a great tool that you can use in your life. When you can identify your emotion and label it. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling hungry. That's not really an emotion, but it could be hangry. Hangry is an emotion. Anyway, when you can identify your emotion, you can figure out the story that's associated with that emotion. And the thing with the stories that we create for ourselves related to how we're emotionally feeling is that oftentimes those stories follow a certain pattern. It's a pattern that maybe something happened when we were kids and it made us have an emotional experience. And then every single time something happens in our life that is similar to that early experience, a button gets pushed, we get triggered, that emotion pops up for us, and we launch right back into that story. That story might be something like, I don't deserve to get what I want, or no matter how hard I try, it's not good enough. Or, we create all kinds of stories for ourselves. And those stories, I've talked about that before in other videos, those stories come from a place of wanting to help ourselves. And they are actually, beneficial. They were beneficial at one point in our lives, but maybe they're also keeping us stuck in a pattern, stuck in a story. So anyway, when your emotions accompany those stories, and if there's a theme, then you can start to challenge those stories. Is that really what's happening right now? Or is there something else going on? What's another way of looking at what's going on right now? What if I weren't taking this so personally right now? So that takes practice, certainly. But the emotions can help you find those patterns. Another way that you can use your emotions as a tool is to ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me right now? Our emotions are like red flags all the time, trying to communicate that something is either going the way we want it to go, or it's not going the way that we want it to go. Sometimes it can be very obvious about, what the emotion is trying to tell us, but sometimes not so much. We can start to have an emotion and wonder, wait a minute, this emotion seems like it's way out of proportion to what's actually happening. So what is going on here? Instead of trying to veer yourself away from it, veer yourself back and sit down and ask the emotion, what are you trying to tell me? Maybe your emotion isn't necessarily about a story. Maybe it's telling you that you need a break, but you're so busy doing everything that you're not listening to that. Or maybe your emotion is telling you that it's time to make a change in your life. The things that you've been doing up to this point just aren't working anymore. Maybe your emotions are telling you that you're not honoring a value, something that you really value. You know, I value friendships, but maybe you're not spending any time with your friends, and that's making you feel really frustrated. Or maybe your emotion is telling you that it's time to cultivate more joy or find a creative outlet. So, whatever your emotions are telling you, it's important to listen to them. They know what you need. And we can't always expect that our conscious mind is going to supply us with all of the things that we need, especially when we're pulled in so many different directions or we get distracted so easily. So, your emotions are there to keep you on track and remind you of what's really important. So when I was feeling stuck in my career a while back, I believed the story. I believed the story that it was just too late for me. You know, it was too late for me to make changes in my career. I had spent so many years honing my skills as a flutist and a flute instructor. What else could I do? And also, there just wasn't enough time or money for me to make any of these changes. So, you know, why bother? Or I wasn't strong enough to make those changes. I certainly wasn't brave enough to make those changes. You know, what would people think of me after all of these years of devoting my life to music? What would they think of me, you know, making any kind of change? So then I fell into a deep depression because I was suppressing all of those emotions. And depression felt like I was sick all the time. I felt like I had the flu. My body ached. And I didn't want to do anything. I didn't have any energy. And I couldn't really differentiate any of my feelings anymore. I just felt heavy all the time, 100% of the day. But I finally got to the point where I realized that if I didn't make a change, I was going to get even sicker. I was going to actually, you know, have some kind of medical ailment that was going to need actual medical intervention. So I didn't want to go down that path. And I managed to have the courage to let go of some jobs and take the time that I really needed to reflect and sit with my emotions. And I found that I wasn't getting stuck in my emotions like I thought I was going to. And I was able to identify what I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. And I was able to change some stories. And once I could do that, I started to feel lighter. I started to feel like I had energy again. I started to look forward to things again. And I realized that it wasn't too late for me. I started finding examples all over the place of people my age or older who'd made massive changes in their life. Why would it be any different for me? And I decided too that it was time for me to start taking steps towards the things that made me feel good and not force myself to only do the things that I thought I should be doing, even though they were making me feel bad. So anyway, in that moment of my life, I used my emotions as a navigational tool to get unstuck. It was painful, but it didn't last for very long, and it definitely didn't last as long as my career burnout did. Reconnecting with my emotional landscape helped me experience the feel-good emotions in my life again too. So I hope those are some tools that you can use in your life. I hope this message resonates with you. And I want to thank you so much for being here with me tonight or whenever you're watching this video. If you have some stuck places in your life that you are in need of clarity and perspective shifting, I'd love to work with you. I take clients in my practice downtown St. John's or online. I'd love to offer a complimentary coaching session. Or if you just need to relax, I also offer sound healing. And sound healing and coaching seems to be a really fantastic combination for people, getting those physical emotions unstuck so that you can start to talk about them. So if that's something you'd like to try, send me a message and we'll get that set up. And please like or share these videos with people you think might find value in them as well. And, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That helps people find it. So thank you very much for doing that. You can stay tuned to any of my updates on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, my website, www.wingsunfolded.com. And remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Thank you so much and have a great week. Take care.